The UFC might have a serious problem right now because for the first time in years, it feels like they're losing control. And honestly, this might be Dana White's fault. Their biggest stars aren't fighting, and that's a problem. You've got Jon Jones sitting out and Conor McGregor nowhere to be found. And even when the UFC tries to go big, like the recent White House card they announced, it doesn't hit the same. And that should never happen because the UFC was solely built on superstar power. And right now, I definitely feel like it's fading. Now let's be completely honest, this didn't just happen. This is on Dana White. Because instead of focusing on the UFC, he's out here building a whole new boxing promotion, Zuffa Boxing, while his own roster that he built is sitting inactive. Think about that for a second. Your biggest stars aren't fighting, and you're focusing on another sport. That doesn't make sense. And while all that is happening, you have the one and only Jake Paul building a brand new company and putting together legit events, bringing in names like Nate Diaz and Francis Ngannou, superstars that the UFC used to have. And here's the scary part, those events, they actually feel massive. Meanwhile, UFC cards lately, they feel like filler episodes. And now, fighters are starting to notice there are other ways of making money, big money, outside the UFC. And once more fighters realize that, that's when everything starts to fall apart. And this just isn't about a few bad cards. This is about control. Because every era of the UFC had their own respective stars. You had George St. Pierre, you had the Spider Anderson Silva, and then after they retired, you had Conor McGregor and Jon Jones. Every era had guys that carried the sport. Big names, big moments, must-watch fights. And more importantly, everybody would tune into the UFC. If you wanted fame, if you wanted money, if you wanted to be a star, you had to go through the UFC. But now, that's not so true anymore. You've got influencer boxing, you've got crossover fights, you've got new promotions popping up, and they're paying the bills. Sometimes, even more than the UFC. So now you've got fighters looking around like, why am I waiting for a fight when I can make millions elsewhere? And that's a dangerous spot for the UFC to be in. Because once they end up losing that control of their fighters, it's hard to gain it back. So yeah, the UFC might not be dead, but something feels off. Your biggest stars aren't fighting, your biggest moments aren't happening, and your competition is starting to heat up. And instead of fixing it, Dana White might be distracted. And that's a problem. But if the UFC wants to turn this around, Dana White has to step back in and take control. He needs to fix his focus back to the company he built his name on. Because right now, it's not about cards, it's not about prospects, it's about putting the right fights together. The fights people actually care about. And most importantly, he needs to get Conor McGregor back into the octagon. Because like it or not, he's still the one name that can bring the UFC back to its prime.